Well, joining me now is a Democratic Congressman from Cincinnati, Ohio, Greg Landsman, Congressman. Thanks for coming into the Toddcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Look, we are recording about 30 minutes after we've all heard about the news of what happened to Charlie Kirk from Turning Point, conservative activist. It's obviously, this is yet another moment where a piece of political violence happens. We're shocked, not surprised, not shocked. I don't know how else to put it, but this is just horrific. One of the phrases I always like to use is the reason human civilization created politics so we could resolve disputes without violence.
Yeah.
This happened on a college campus, Congressman, where we should be celebrating speech. This is the first couple of weeks of school. I remember my freshman year. I was so excited about hearing different points of view. I got to Jesse Jackson one day, Newt Gingrich another, back in the early 90s at GW. It was the best part of being, and to think now an entire, and I look, I've got two kids at college right now.
Oh, wow.
Every college campus is going to lock down, right? Every college campus is suddenly going to be afraid of celebrating speech. And we have this, it's just, we know we've got to get out of this moment. How do we get out of this moment?
I mean, look, one, you have to decide as a country that this is it. We don't want to do this anymore, and that's something that happens collectively over some time. But I haven't seen the video, but my understanding is it's pretty horrific.
It's horrific. I hope tech companies take it on. I mean, it's. I mean, my 18-year-old son immediately texts me because I've seen the video, and you're just like, I wish you hadn't.
Yeah,
Can't unsee it.
I've been talking about this, for the better part of the year, because some of this has started to hit home. I mean, we've gotten our fair share of threats, and we had people outside of our house for several days. I am obviously frustrated like everybody else. At the moment, I'm hoping for a miracle here that in the end Charlie makes it. It's not clear what's going to happen because I obviously I don't know, but
you don't, right?
You hope he not only survives but he recovers. Either way, it's a tragedy, a horrific thing that we have to all be completely appalled by. And then there is part of it is political rhetoric. Like we all have to do a better job. Everyone does. I'm very careful about what I say and how I say it. But we need everyone, particularly those at the top, to get their act together and to appreciate that strength does not mean cruelty. Strength does not mean division. Strength does not mean you ridicule people. Strength and kindness actually go together. I mean, I think, you want people who are daring and courageous and who are strong and are willing to like run through a wall to get something done, but who are also decent and kind and bring people together. Plus, there is a mental health issue in this country that's undeniable. There is a social media issue in this country that's undeniable. And there's an access to guns, not by, everyday people, but by those who have criminal intent, those who are dangerous. Access to guns by those who are dangerous is a huge, huge problem. And all of that comes together to create a terrible, volatile, deadly situation.
I think about the role of the tech companies. This is where I don't disagree with any of you said. I zero in on the tech companies and the algorithms because I really think they have accelerated polarization. And I think when you look at
it's an accelerant,
it's like 100%, right? And if you get a concentrated amount, of fear or rhetoric that is designed to keep you on a platform and anger you and fire you up and do all of this, it does impact your brain and whether you're 65 or 16.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I got off of, obviously, as an elected, I'm on Substack and X and Instagram and TikTok, all of them.
Right.
And we're constantly putting out content. And, people print stuff out for me. So I'm getting feedback from people, but
Mhm.
I deleted everything about a month ago. And it feels like I'm like a month sober. Like I'm an infinitely happier
Yeah.
person. I'm more focused. Uh, I think people would say I'm a kind person to begin with, but I have been so nice and kind the last month because I don't have this like awfulness
Yeah.
flooding my brain all day. And so I don't know, just one thing you can do is just delete it all right now.
Right. No,
Yeah.
because if you think about it, unfortunately, most of our political debate is dominated by some fringes who this is their hobby. This is all they have. Maybe they're lonely and this is what they have. Maybe they're, and there's so much of it.
For purpose.
Right. The average person is living their life and isn't in the middle of these, political debates
And
right
this
now.
being
Yeah.
off, and I hope to God I don't ever, download them again. But it has also helped me better connect to the people who I serve because I'm really just listening to them now. There's no
Yeah.
other noise. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like between friends and family and staff, like who are now my algorithm,
Right.
I see some stuff. They send me some stuff, and I can't really log on, but sometimes Twitter will let you on the browser and see what it is.
Right.
But I do think that for elected officials in particular, it's really, really bad to be sitting around scrolling on these platforms
Look,
all
I'm
day.
not going to name names, but there's a couple of members who are super online.
Terrible.
And I think it's perverted their brain. There's a specific
If they were
senator
normal, if they
that is
were
warped, who I know, and in person is this fascinating, intellectually interesting person, and their online persona is off the rails.
yeah,
And I blame, I think I'm like, man, go hang out with your kids, go play some video games or
I
something.
have a long list of issues with Donald Trump and JD Vance and this crew.
Mhm.
But on that list is the fact that they just like they have the time. I mean, I don't know what they're doing.
Don't either. I can't believe the vice president tweets as much as he
They
does. I'm
tweet
with
all
you.
day.
Yeah,
I'm very
strange.
busy, as are you. And including at night, Trump, is tweeting in the middle of the night. I just which also means that they're sitting there reading all this stuff. And it just removes them from our everyday lives.
Yeah.
But back to the political violence
Yeah.
piece. I mean, I do think that people need to call out those in political leadership who cross the line, and so do we. And I do when it comes to me. But this is where Republicans and Democrats should start working together to say, okay, there is a mental health issue here. There is a social media. I'm on energy and commerce. And one of the reasons why I joined this committee was one part healthcare, one part big tech. I want to start to hold these folks accountable. And the best thing you could do, quite frankly, is to eliminate the litigation shield that protects these companies. Because
100%.
if individuals, communities have the ability to take on Mark Zuckerberg and say, you got to get this stuff off your platform in a lawsuit, he will get the stuff off their platform.
Well, Congressman, I actually think you don't even need to wipe out Section 230. I think the law has been misinterpreted. The second Facebook created an algorithm, they became a publisher. The second X created an algorithm, they're a publisher. This idea that it's no. The minute you choose to push stuff or suppress stuff, you're now a publisher. I've been an editor. I've been a publisher. I choose what to put as a headline or what not to put as a headline.
The algorithm is the decision-making apparatus you created.
Yeah. And those companies, I think this is just flawed. I didn't go to law school, but I play one on a podcast.
Like getting rid of 230 will help that argument even more. But yes,
I take your point, but I actually think that, again, they are public. This idea that they're not publishers, well, they are now. Maybe they weren't at the beginning. If they did a timeline, they wouldn't be. They could hide behind 230. But they chose an algorithm.
Yeah, they did.
That's publishing.
Once they picked the algorithm, I think that's right. And then, this is in my pledge to America. What we're now calling the Great American Comeback is our 10 bills, right? That would fundamentally, I think, fix what's been broken, not just for the last 8 months, but for decades. And one of those is around public safety and saying, like, we do need to have reform, gun safety work that says, folks get to keep their guns for sure, but we're going to be really intentional about keeping guns away from dangerous people. And I think you can get those reforms done if you pair it with the other thing we need, which is more cops. And that's what happened in the 90s, right? Clinton said, look, we're going to get gun reform done and make things safer and reduce gun violence, but we also need 100,000 cops. And so that's our 21st century anti-crime bill that I think resonates with people because they see these things and they see disgusting, this should not be happening. Why did this guy, how did this guy get a weapon? He's clearly unwell. And a lot of gun owners, like I'm surrounded by gun owners. This is, I grew up with gun owners. I'm from Southwest Ohio. I think everyone on my street is a gun owner, and they feel the same way that I do, which is there are certain people who are unwell that should not have weapons. And this guy probably was one of them.
Well, to me, the minute you make a decision that violence is the right, something is snapped, right? I sort of, right? Like the minute, and I think that I forget who used to say, America doesn't have the lion's share of mentally ill people. We just have our mentally ill people have access to far greater firepower than many other countries with their mentally ill people.
We do have more mentally ill folks, I think, roaming around. But yes, I mean, I do think that's something that like my side of the aisle has to contend with, which is, yes, we don't have bets, but we also have to have a plan because, you're seeing this play out in our cities and Democrats have to lead in a way that not only convinces people we're serious about public safety, but demonstrates that we are because crime is going down.
So one of the unfortunate things that is probably going to happen is we're going to slide into this whose side is more violent debate. And this is where I don't know if we have the leadership in both parties to say that's not the answer.
Doesn't matter.
Right?
Who cares? Right. I mean, like this is where, again, being off social media is so helpful because all I think about is like, okay, what's my wife think of this? I know what she's going to think of this, but I want to hear from her. I want to hear from my friends. I want to hear from my family members. I want to hear from my constituents. And they're all going to say the same thing. It's all going to be, this has got to stop. Like we can't, it doesn't matter. I almost want to say that Charlie Kirk, who is obviously very conservative, very outspoken, just as a political figure. Don't call him anything else. Just he's a political figure who was shot. And
for simply expressing his opinion.
Correct. That is
we founded our country. I mean, the First Amendment, that was we have the greatest, that amendment. No other country has it.
I know.
No other country has it. And the more we behave this way, this is how you lose it.
We should fight for it. And this is not going to happen. But the president should say, this is a horrific thing. It doesn't matter the politics. It doesn't matter this has to end. Nobody should ever, ever, ever pick up a gun or any other, weapon and hurt somebody ever for any reason. Certainly not for political gain.
Look, our president was almost killed.
Correct. Which, by the way, was one of the scariest moments I remember as an adult.
Same. I mean, it was extraordinarily scary. And, let me ask you this. Why hasn't there been like a congressional special committee to investigate what happened in Butler and learn more about this? It's been one of the strangest post.
Yeah.
I've been surprised at how little, and there's a little demand there's been for something there was some after action report, but it didn't get the focus that I think it deserved.
Well, and this is also one of the reasons I think is because what was a hallmark of politics growing up for me was a sense of bipartisanship. There
That ship has sailed right now.
That is one of the reasons why, is because if the folks at the top were as bipartisan as I am, I suspect as you are, in terms of like wanting to have everyone in the room. You want everyone in the room. If you're going to solve a problem,
I count on it. I'm afraid of when only one side's in a room, no matter which side it is.
You want everyone in the room.
I want to check.
That's how you get to a better solution. It's also how you get to a durable solution. I think the challenge was everyone, immediately took a political position on Butler, and some said, "Oh, law enforcement, screwed this thing up." And that's the end of it. And then others said, no, this was, a crazy person and this kid, and well, he was a Democrat, and then no, he was a Republican. It was sort of like,
who cares? He was a violent individual. How did he get so broken? That's what we need to find out.
How did the kid get so broken? How did he get a gun? How did he get on that roof? And how was he in a position on that roof to shoot the president? Like, those are the answers. And then how do you make sure that never happens again?
But to me, it's just shocking how little we know about the shooter, how little we know about what happened there. Look, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm skeptical it would, but this is one of those things where if you are worried the country's that we're in a tinderbox right now, and my concern is we are.
Yeah.
Then I don't care who the president is, they need to address the nation and calm the waters.
I agree 100%. And
I hope
you and I
hope Susie Wiles. I know Susie Wiles gets it. I do. Yeah. I do. I hope he'll embrace it. I don't know if he can. I'm not. Look, he's. We can go through all the ways he has celebrated pugilism and all that stuff. I'm not. It doesn't matter. The moment right now, he's the president. He can rise up. He could be so powerful if he would do this. It would be a powerful moment for him. And if you want me to be cynical, it might be good politics for him.
Yeah, I mean, Barack Obama was good at this.
Yes, he was. Bill Clinton was good at this. George W. Bush was good at this. Our presidents usually know how to rise to the occasion.
Was good at this. Yeah. I mean, I'm going back and reading all these inaugural addresses as part of writing this great American comeback. And Trump was the departure from an inaugural address that was all about where we go from here and how much better it's going to be and how it's rooted in who we are. They all follow this formula of
except one. I know,
but that doesn't mean he can't redeem himself.
Look, the guy. The beginning of his speech in Milwaukee had that feel to it for a bit.
That's the thing. It's like it's always the beginning, and then it just sort of he goes off script. But look, I think we need to get to a place after this moment, and obviously we work in this moment. To be clear, but I think we need to get to a place where we have these really energized, determined, strong leaders who are willing to run through a wall to fix this, and who are going to bring the biggest coalition of people, multi-generational, multiracial, bipartisan group of people together to upend what's broken. And the list of things that are broken is long, but our capacity to fix things throughout our history, I mean, it's there. I mean, we have it. And to me, I know this is changing the gears a little bit, but we as a country and certainly as a party, my caucus, my crew, but the country too, that we've been chasing Trump for 10 years, right?
Yeah. I had a friend of mine say just that reaction, his initial reaction is a Democratic strategist who said, and I'm not going to use his name, but it's funny you said, because it was immediately, he's like, he goes, I'm so tired of Dems talking about Trump. And he's a Dem.
Yeah, exactly. Same. Now, I get that. Look, I'm in the middle of a bunch of fights, really important fights with this administration, because I have federal workers in my district who I will go to the mat for, and I'm going to do everything in my power to keep their jobs. And I've got people in my district who are going to lose their health care if I don't if I don't put up the best fight possible. So like there are fights day in and day out. However, leading is something that they desperately want us to do, and chasing Trump is not leading. And I think folks are desperate for that kind of leadership that says, look, we are going to head in a different direction. And we are going to pull the American people in that direction, by fixing the economy, by tackling public safety, by offering real solutions on immigration and border security. And you continue to make the case before, during, after elections, so that it becomes what the vast majority of Americans expect. That's how you get to this great American comeback. And I think that's how you, as a member of the Democratic Party, that's how you get folks back to say, okay, we know who you are. You're not just people who don't like Trump. You are people who are going to fix the tax code so that we get the money, not the super wealthy. You're the folks that are going to help us pay our bills because there is an affordability crisis. And you're the folks that are going to build 10 million new homes. Like you guys are going to be the ones that start to get the country building again, and so on and so forth. And I just think people are desperate for it. I consider myself the most average voter. Like I'm about as average of and so like, that's what I want. I want to see, a really strong group of leaders who appreciate the fact that this system, whether it's the political system, the economic system, the immigration system, it's all broken. It's been broken longer than 8 months. It's been broken for decades. Right. And we need a group of really daring people to go fix it.
So you got your start in politics. What did you do before becoming a member of the city council?
Before I was at City Hall, I was doing education, child advocacy work. I was a teacher. My parents were teachers. I'm
What'd you teach?
I taught high school Spanish and remedial math.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be in a classroom. I made a list when I was in my early 20s of everything I wanted to do.
Was running for Congress one of them, or being in Congress
running for office was one. I think it was.
You didn't know which. You didn't say which one.
That was actually the sentence on it was a list of 10, 12 things I wanted to do.
Did you say you wanted to be president? It's okay. Amy Klobuchar told me. Amy Klobuchar in an interview told me that in high school she thought about being president.
This was my 20s, and it said run for office. And I remember somebody seeing a really close friend, and he said, "Don't you want to be more ambitious?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I mean, don't you want to win?" That's oh, it does just say run. It does only say run, but that's what it's that.
Tell me about the city council experience, because I sit here, I have a very cynical view sometimes, and shocking, right? You spend this much time in Washington, you can't help it. But one of my jokes is the least corrupt legislative body in America is Congress, and that the more local you go, the more possibility for corruption there is, mostly because there aren't a lot of reporters like me covering city council races. There are a lot of reporters that cover Congress. And even though we sit here and over-index on congressional scandals, my goodness, it's the stuff people don't realize what's happening there. So I know that was a very cynical answer. I'm setting you up here, but am I being too cynical?
No, well, I think being skeptical is really good. I don't know. I can only speak for Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati has been relatively clean. We've had a relatively good.
Do you have a weak mayor system?
It's kind of in the middle. You have an independently elected mayor who hires and fires the city manager, who obviously.
But the council's pretty strong, right? They're pretty powerful.
Very, very strong. And so if you want to be a strong mayor, you have to work for it. And I love that about our system, which means you have to have really good relationships with and build a strong coalition on council. And really strong mayors have done that. But you got to want it. It just doesn't. You got to work for it. And I feel that way about the presidency of the United States. There's a lot of power there. What I think the president's doing now seems strong because but he's only using the levers at the White House. He's not doing anything other than the reconciliation.
I call them, it's like potato chip calories.
Correct.
right? It isn't healthy, and more importantly, it'll disappear.
It'll
Right.
disappear.
It immediately, immediately, if you do everything by executive order, you leave nothing that's lasting.
Right. Yeah. And so like you have to like work with Congress. And so we have that system that requires the mayor to work with council and to have a governing coalition, which I think is great. There have been obviously there was some pretty serious issues with corruption in the last couple of years in city council. One of the things I did I was there for 5 years, was to set up the first ever Office of Good Government, Ethics and Good Government, which requires a ton of training and support and new expectations, which I think have helped because it's been nothing but smooth sailing since the office was created, but it has gotten better. I do also think that like everyone, let me say this, it helped me to be at City Hall. It helped me because every week I was in front of my constituents. There was open public comment sessions where, for as long as they wanted, everyone got 2 minutes, and sometimes those lasted for hours. And like I think that's how
I'm envisioning scenes out of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, but
and
like
all those.
People passionately. That's just when people are yelling at me. I what's the Leslie Knope line? They're just talking passionately.
Yeah.
But something like that. But yeah, I like that. I think it's really good and healthy to hear from people. Sometimes it's like pretty crazy stuff. Sometimes it's actually like, God, that is a good idea. Or like, yeah, we should actually spend more time focusing on these questions. I also think one more thing. I also think it's really important that we start to run government much better. And if you've been at City Hall and you care about running government much better, you have a really good sense as to like what bureaucracy can do and why it can become a huge problem, and what you have to do to like punch through and create shot clocks and get stuff out the door, and why that's so important. You learn a lot about public safety and what cops need and what firefighters need and what communities want from their cops and their firefighters. And you learn the basics, the paving roads and picking up trash, and why doing the basics, the fundamentals, has to be top of, like, that's what you have. Like, there's all these wonderful things I want to do for children and families, from prenatal care to child care and all these things that, and ultimately we got done, eviction prevention, housing stuff, but you got to do the basics first. And I think that's true at state and state, at the state level and up here.
Compare being in a small legislature, essentially, which is what a city council is, to this gigantic one.
There are more personalities.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it must be both more empowering and sometimes frustrating, though, that you take so long to get something done.
Yeah, I mean, it's this. I guess this is the other benefit of, I think, being at City Hall, is that they're at City Hall, like, you're constantly getting calls from people in the city that need help. No one picked up their trash. Their mail is not getting delivered to them. There's a problem property across the street. And so you're constantly getting to work, which I love. When you get to Congress, you can do the same thing. Like, just you invest in your casework team, and you tell your casework team, like, obviously your focus is on federal agencies, but if they need help with a local,
help them out. Yeah. Figure it out.
You figure it out. Yeah. And if that means helping to figure out who to call to get their trash picked up, be that person. And, we're known for that, which is awesome. And I love getting in the middle of some of this stuff. I give my email and my phone number out wherever I go. My staff hates, but I'll get an email that's like, hey, I'm so sorry, nobody picked up my trash. And I'm like, I love this, because I know who to, like, here's who's going to. So now, in addition to that, if you get really good at the legislative part up here, you can fundamentally change the world. Yeah. Like, I think that's we last year forced a vote on the Social Security Fairness Act. Now, there are millions of people in this country. For 25 years, this bill had been sitting in Congress, where teachers, retired teachers, police officers, firefighters, letter carriers, they weren't getting all their Social Security because they got their state pension, and they don't give them too much, but they paid for their Social Security. They paid into Social Security, so it's earned benefits. Right. And it had 363 signatures, people who were like, no, I want to do that, because they wanted to tell their teachers or their police or their firefighters that they were on the bill. but it wouldn't get to the floor. And so I worked with Abigail Spanberger and Garrett Graves, Republican. She's a Democrat. And we, after weeks, months of negotiating, when we realized we weren't going to get a vote, we forced a vote. It was one of only a couple of discharge petitions last session. I went hard to get 218 signatures. We got it in 2 days. And it passed the House. We worked it on the Senate. We got Schumer to get us a vote. And now it's $20 billion a year, which is a lot of money, but it's their money that's going to retire teachers. So when I'm out and about, I swear to you, this is not hyperbole. Every week, let's say, I have multiple people coming up to me and saying, thank you, because I get all my benefits. That's like $600-700 a month now.
Right. And
that's a big deal. That's $20 billion a year. So it's like, no, I want to figure out how to do this so well that I'm doing that, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year.
So sometime after 9/11, congressional leaders ruined Congress. I sit here and I wish you were a member back when there was a lot more opportunity for non-leadership to get stuff done. The fact that you have to use discharge petitions, right? One of the things now, we have 535 members of Congress and 4 people make decisions.
100%.
Right. Sometimes I almost don't want to even bother telling people how it used to work, because for me, it doesn't feel like that long ago. Like, this was still the 90s, and committee chairs and ranking members could work together and do stuff. Max Baucus and Chuck Grassley ran the finance committee. They cared more about running that committee together than they did either of their party leaders, until eventually the party leaders just sort of revoked those privileges.
This is one of my rants. When I went on break, I'm so frustrated about this. When I went on break last year for the election, which was essentially the end of the term,
right?
I asked somebody from my team, pull the number of bills that pass out of committee that are ready for a floor vote. 698. There were 700 bills. You're
kidding me. I didn't know that number. So say that again. 700 bills made it out of committee, which means it had, majority vote, made it out of committee. And, we all supposedly saw the cartoon of how a bill becomes a law. So you get out of committee and it's supposed to go to the floor of the House. And how many of those 698 bills made it to the floor of the House?
Let's just say in the last couple of weeks of the year, I don't know. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say 50.
Wow.
And I think that's probably generous. So I suspect it was around 700.
That's a batting average of under 100. But
I mean, it's just insane. So close to 700 bills, or over 650 bills, made it out of committee and never got a floor vote. Now, what was leadership doing with all that floor time? They were putting forward messaging bills. It used to be that Congress would do a few bills to try to help their incumbents,
right.
But now it's messaging bill after messaging bill after messaging bill.
Do they have the direct mail pieces written in advance, and then they write the bill to make the piece work?
It does read, the bills read here's
right.
how to attack you. We today, this is another sad day. The National Defense Reauthorization Act, which has always been nonpartisan. Remember, you and I say this to young people, and they're like, "Oh, that's a cool saying," but we grew up with it, which is politics ends at the water's edge. I love that. Which was
unfortunately, I have a thesis that when the Berlin Wall fell, so did that, and I don't think we fell.
Why did we go all the way back? I thought it was.
Well, because of I think when you look at it, if you sort of take a step back of where we are, the only time that was actually relevant was during the Cold War, when both parties kept their fringes at bay, and everybody had their eye on the Soviet ball. And you had this sort of, it didn't matter who was president. Everybody was going to make sure, was concerned about nuclear war and was concerned about the Soviets.
Well, I wanted that.
I do too. And we had it briefly at 9/11, but it went away pretty fast. And it's one of those, I have I look at it, and if you look at the totality of our 249 years, the Cold War era might be the outlier, where we were more bipartisan, where we were a bit less sort of caustic at each other. All of our presidential elections were blowouts, by the way. We never had most of during the Cold War, 68 and 76 were it. You look at this century, every single presidential election has been decided by 6 points or less.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're touching, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I wonder whether or not, and I was just in Asia last week, Japan and Tokyo, and it's impossible not to spend most of the time talking about or thinking about the China threat and how real it is, how close we are.
What is it? I was on a show today that said, how close are we to World War III? And I was like, oh my God, please get off the internet. But how would you have answered the question?
I mean, if we don't get our act together, we're very close and we're a couple years away. I mean, like
it's my concern,
because at the moment, China has said within the next couple of years, they are going to resolve the Taiwan issue in their minds, which is going to be potentially boots on the ground for them. They're going to invade. And the Taiwan Straits is a huge, a trading artery. And, if China controls that and decides, if they move on Taiwan, the United States has to decide, the world has to decide whether or not they're going to allow it. I think the answer is you can't, at which point we are at war. I don't know what that war looks like, but the best way to deter or to avoid that is by being very, very serious about our capabilities in the region, and by proving to Xi that the cost of doing that, the cost of messing with Taiwan, which would potentially, start a global war, is too high. And that now means you have to push Putin back, because if he sees Putin advancing without, any real pushback from the United States, for example, he just messed around in Poland. And our president seemed uninterested. That
was a little the fact he didn't say anything on that is Look, I mean, Poland invoked Article 4, right?
China the incentive to say, okay, if the cost was up here, if Putin got rid of that, cost comes down, and the further the cost goes down for China, the more likely it is that you don't.
Well, I mean, look, this is how one person put it to me. This is somebody on the right who wants to defend Taiwan, but said, how do you make the case to somebody in Cincinnati, Ohio, that their son or daughter ought to fight on behalf of this small island against China?
Yeah, I mean, it's global trade. It's also just the global order, and us being next, or our allies being next. It's the same situation in Ukraine. I don't think that the next big global war necessarily means that we have troops invading other countries. I mean, I think
we're learning the drone. I mean, what we're learning coming out of, I just had a tremendous interview with Dexter Filkins, who did this deep dive about the future of warfare and everything that's been learned from the Ukrainians here. I mean, the drone wars are here.
Drone wars are here, and you have to have people in strategic places all over the world, and we do. Do we have enough? Probably not. Certainly
Should we have
not.
an Asian NATO?
So, I asked that question. I was over there, and the answer is no. We're good. The multilateral agreements are fine. Everyone's working together. That's what you need. But it gets complicated, because not all of those countries. It's not the same as Europe. Right. There's not a shared currency. There's not a shared economy.
But there is a shared concern about China. I mean, I do between Japan, South Korea, Australia, right? I mean, now I know they're all nervous about China.
Everyone, the Philippines, everyone has banded together, but they like to. There's beef, that does,
the South Koreans and the Japanese are still beefing, right?
They are. It is not going to go away. But that does not mean that, and quite frankly, this is where American leadership is so important, because we're there and we're helping to sort of organize all of that. They are in a position to defend themselves and to maintain a rule-based system around, in the Indo-Pacific, which has huge ramifications for our economy and our national security. Right. But it does, right now, what you need is a president of the United States and a Defense Department secretary, somebody who's serious. And this is frustrating that you have somebody like Hegseth leading such a hugely important organization, increasing the cost to China to mess around with Taiwan. And at the moment, you saw China hanging out with, Russia. That is them saying, no, we see you, Trump. You're sort of letting Putin do what he wants. Is that going to be the same for us? And the answer is absolutely not. And he has to prove that by pushing Putin back.
One of the dots I connect where I get concerned about global conflict in the moment we're in is that the last time we were this protectionists in our country was the 1920s and 1930s. And we're a far larger economy now. Our decisions are affecting the livelihoods of people all over the world. And, when we behave with, hey, it's us first, everybody else is going to say, okay, then we're not in this together. And everything is a zero-sum game. I mean, I worry that this increases the likelihood of war, 100%. All these tariffs.
It diminishes the connectivity, the connectedness. Now, look, obviously, there is a role for tariffs to play. I'm a big believer in strategic tariffs where you're using it for a purposeful end. I
had somebody describe it to me that the way tariffs should be used is it's like the way police use force. It's there. They can use it if they need to. We hope we don't, but when we have to, we'll use it. But it is not a strategy to grow the economy. Just like using force all the time is not a strategy to protect people.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're still very popular around the world based on the Pew-like data, right? Which is good.
Yeah, be careful of going to South Seoul these days. I don't know if we're very popular in Seoul.
But with the leaders, they're frustrated. But and obviously the raid on the plant didn't help with the numbers. But we're still much more popular than anyone else. I mean, people still like the United States. They don't like.
Well, we're the cleanest pair of underwear in the hamper, but it's still dirty.
Yeah, I mean, like we need somebody who this country desperately needs somebody globally who can bring people together to reestablish the kind of global order that has led to unprecedented peace and unprecedented prosperity, and somebody who will bring us together, unify us as a country, which we desperately need to fix the things that are broken. And at the heart of what's broken is the swamp, right? Like, is this rigged system, whether it's political, economic, like it's just the super powerful and the super plugged in have gotten so much at the expense of everybody else. And somebody or a group of us will have to upend that whole thing.
Let's talk a little bit about the future of the Democratic Party. If you at all read Kamala Harris, the excerpt from Kamala Harris's book yet in the Atlantic?
I did.
You did. So you're fresh on that. You were among the first, I think you were the first member of Congress to call.
I was the first member of Congress to say, like, this is going to, hold on one second. Where's votes? Can you just turn it on? How many votes did they start, buddy? Just give me 1 minute. I want to answer this question.
Okay. I thought we had till 4:30. Are you good?
Yeah, let's just watch it. Stand there and watch it. If it hits, I usually if it hits 180, I got to go.
Okay. So what do you go? All right.
I was one of the first people after the debate to say that's a huge problem. If he doesn't, if Biden doesn't reverse course and prove that this was some sort of anomaly, then he's got to drop out. And then I gave him a couple weeks to, prove that he could reverse course, and he clearly didn't. I thought I have more credibility if I gave him, that time. And and I was kind of hoping it was an anomaly. It clearly wasn't an anomaly. I think, anyone who did not, say what was obviously true is going to have a problem with voters. And so our party needs to.
And you're in a swing district. I mean, you won making that case. Hey, I'm not right.
Making that case on everything, which is
Right.
This is 100% how I feel. I'm just going to tell you. You know what I mean? And that people just want that. They don't. The expectations for elected officials aren't any different than the expectations they have for their spouse.
So let me ask you this: why didn't you do it sooner? Why not before the debate? I mean, there was a lot of and I'm just curious. Yeah. Did you?
No. It's a good question. I saw him at that. I went to the. I sat in the chamber during that State of the Union.
State of the Union, yeah.
And it was like, which one is real? Is the State of the Union Joe Biden, or is the debate Joe Biden? And that's why I said, look, you have a couple weeks. Prove to me that it was State of the Union, that we're dealing with State of the Union Joe Biden. And
did you feel pressure though? Did you feel that there was a collective pressure? Kamala Harris called it. It's like we were all hypnotized. She said everybody was hypnotized. Did you feel that?
I knew it was there. I didn't feel it. I mean, there were these votes that would come up that would say like, "Hey, you got to get serious about the border." I had no problem voting for those resolutions that essentially attacked Biden, because I thought they shit the bed on the border.
100%.
And so I had no problem. I mean, I watched what they did to Dean Phillips, but Dean,
he's owed an apology. No,
he's and Dean's a friend, but look, I can just say this: the Biden situation was a mess, and for those of us who said so, I think people appreciated that, and those who stood with him, because it was one thing to not say anything, but then there were a bunch of people that were like. And elected officials, members in Congress, are like, don't abandon Joe. We're back in Biden. They're going to have a hard time with voters, in my opinion. But the same is true for the people who said, I know I'm going, sorry. You can cut that, but say this. The same is true for people who are like, oh, the economy's great. The economy's been broken. Those of us who've been honest about the economy do better. Those of us who are honest about the border do better. So I just think people want honest leaders.
You going to get redistricted?
I don't know yet. I gotta go.
I know you do. I know that was the one. That was the one thing we didn't get to is the redistricting.
I don't know. But, we won by 10 in a very tight district. I'm not sure they want to, do messing with us, which could happen, leads to a gerrymander, and they could lose multiple seats. So we'll see.
I will leave it there. Greg, I know this was a tough time. Congressman, sorry. I feel like we've got to know each other already.
No,
and I hope to do this again. Thank you.
You too.